In part one of this video, I will put in the comments. It's rather controversial and it was unrefined. It was rather, there's a lack of preparation that went into it. And now I've refined my thoughts about this, and so I have a theory of awareness that goes like this. The most aware people are a lot more likely to be targeted by psychiatry. Okay, and I'm not just talking about people who go to the psych ward. The numbers would be different. I am talking about people in society in general, in the greater population, whether or not they've been to the psych ward, who psychiatrists and big pharma are consistently trying to drug. They're trying to argue to that person, make the argument that that person is mentally ill, and they're trying to convince them, and they have differing degrees of aggressiveness and assertiveness as to how they're trying to get them on drugs. Okay, so just I'm just going to hold this up right here, and if you want, you can go back to reference it, or I might hold it up a few more times in the video because I want to refer to this. Okay, in society, on the pyramidal chart of awareness, you have the people at the bottom. Okay, because psychiatry is doing what they're doing to these people, they're more aware than most people, except for perhaps the people who aren't targeted by psychiatry, who have gone out of their way to understand psychiatry. Okay, so at the bottom you have the happily drugged. These people are almost certainly spiritual bottom feeders. Then you have an overlap. Then you have 60 to 70% of people who the drugs don't work on. Okay, and they know this. They're aware of that. So they're aware that psychiatry is a joke. Then you have a little overlap. Then you have, these are all approximate numbers. 20 to 30% of people whose problem, they have a defined problem that directly relates to oppression. So they know psychiatry is a joke, and they know that it's a controlled mechanism because their problem highlights that fact. So they have a different perspective than the other two groups. They are thoroughly aware of what is going on, and they see it and they relate it to their problems they had before psychiatry targeted them. A lot of these people have problems with authority. Psychiatry tries to call it oppositional defiance disorder. They have problems with authority figures pushing them around for a good reason, and they are right to feel that way. And instead of society changing how it is, society wants them to change how they are. And so they want them to be put in a state of mind that is less aware. Okay? And when you look at the people who pretend like nothing is wrong, what do? They keep themselves busy. And keeping yourself busy and occupied is a form of being less aware. Those of us who sit around and think about these things, we're more aware of these things than people who are just, they're going to work, they're working at McDonald's, they're working as a garbage man. They're less aware because they're not thinking about it as much. On some level, they're aware, but they're less aware. So this pyramid represents the most aware people in society. Okay? How do people maintain a mind state where they're unmoved? Is they're focusing on something else. They'll be in a room where people are suffering, but they're focusing on their task, just like a hospital orderly, nurse, psychiatrist, what have you. Even a psychiatrist lacks a certain awareness because they are focusing on adjusting dosages and so on. They're not thinking about society at large and the sociological perspective of what is going on. They're thinking about the psychiatric perspective of what is going on. So when you look at the 20 to 30%, okay, on the top, you have a 10% of those 20 to 30% of people have inclinations toward violent proclivities as a result of having a problem related to oppression. And 10% of that 10%, or 1% of the 20 to 30%, which remember is the group that has defined problem directly related to oppression, okay, the top of the pyramid are, these are the experts. They're the most sophisticated of the 20 to 30%. In fact, they're the most sophisticated of the entire pyramid. All right, so we live in a society where, there's three groups of people targeted by psychiatry, first of all. One is happily drugged. The other, the drugs do not work, and they know it. They know it. And the last one, they have a defined problem directly related to oppression. Now, the 20 to 30%, the last group I mentioned, are prime candidates for gang stalking. In gang stalking, you have the one headlight, which is supposed to represent one eye. You know, the eye of Ra, the eye of Providence, the eye of Lucifer, the eye of Horus. You see, the reason why the most aware people are violently inclined is because politics is a mix of people who are openly loyal to the New World Order, scumbags, and controlled opposition groups. So therefore, the idea that you are going to somehow outmaneuver these people with a peaceful, uncontrolled opposition movement is rather laughable, with all the technology and institutions and control groups at their disposal, not to mention the ability to try to play someone out as crazy using mental health and the people around them and all the institutions they control, the military, law enforcement, universities and education, hospitals, big pharma, and, and different government groups, and different controlled political groups and secret societies. There's a lot of groups and institutions and technology at their disposal. So it is rather ridiculous to think that the New World Order's controlled media is going to give you the kind of exposure you need to make a major, peaceful, uncontrolled opposition movement. It's just not going to happen. So when you are very aware of these things and you understand them, and you are, you have a more sophisticated, insightful mind state, you come to the conclusion that, violence is the answer. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that 1 in 300 people, are going to be violent per se. They just understand that the only way this problem is ever going to be solved is through violence. Okay? So, when you look at 1% of those 1 in 300, the top of the pyramid, you get another pyramid, which is the 1 in 30,000. All right? So now that when you start slicing it to this level, these people are more likely to be violent because they appreciate the situation more and they're not going to accept it. With a higher level of awareness comes a higher responsibility, comes the inability to ignore human suffering and massive injustice. And these people are starting to look into things such as 65 million preventable deaths a year. And of that 1 in 30,000, you have 1 in 3 million, the 1% of the 1 in 30,000, the top of the pyramid of the 1 in 30,000. It's 1 in 3 million. There's 10 of those people approximately in the entire country. Okay? These people, given enough time, are pretty much guaranteed to be violent. They're guaranteed to take a stance and to fight against it. Okay? Because with awareness and insight comes wisdom. They say, hey, it is not wise to play stupid about this spiritually. We know that there's a creator. We know that God would not want us to turn a blind eye to the suffering of the least of the brethren. And we have gone into detail. We have discovered the Bible and what it's really trying to say, and how Michael fights Satan and so on. And Jesus said he did not come to bring peace, but a sword. In the Old Testament, it says there's a time to kill. They start noticing these things. They start noticing Christians making arguments that there is no argument in the Bible against self-defense. And they start understanding levels of self-defense. And eventually, the 1 in 3 million have all come to the conclusion that the highest form of self-defense is surgical strikes against the New World Order. So those 10 of those people, okay, and my argument is there's one of those, okay, 10% of those people, 1 in 10, okay, is a person who's 1 in 30 million. This person is absolutely guaranteed to strike the New World Order. So based on this chart and common sense, intuition, foresight, deductive reasoning, careful analysis, critical thinking, the facts, the political environment, I predict that there will be a surgical strike against the elite in the next 20 years. someone other than myself, and that they will not see it coming, because they have trouble enough identifying who the 20 to 30% are versus the 60 to 70%. You know, the people who just see that the drugs don't work and don't do too much research, versus the people who've done the research and they have and they're very aware, and they have a defined problem directly related to oppression. It's going to be very hard for them to make the distinction between those two groups, much less to figure out the 1 in 30,000, much less to figure out the 1 in 3 million. And they are absolutely not going to figure out who the 1 in 30 million is. This person is either a natural leader, or they are naturally gifted at warfare based on their mind. You know, their mind. Bruce Lee said that he's not the fastest fighter. It's because he fights smart that he has an advantage. Okay, based on these people's mind, you know, their intelligence, their intellect, their wisdom. Okay, it's more than just intellect, it's actually wisdom, because they have the wisdom to know that it doesn't profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul. But it does profit a man to be a transcendent hero and strike the enemy where it hurts, where it counts, where it's going to make a difference, you know, to strike fear in the hearts of the biggest terrorists of all, you know, the secret societies behind the government, what have you. So when you're looking at this situation, okay, the wise man pursues virtue, and the highest form of the pursuit of virtue is the pursuit of your enemies in this situation, where your enemies are killing 65 million people a year. So the term self-defense, when applied masterfully, actually means the defense of a divine philosophy, the defense of people who are similar to oneself. And on the highest level, you are an innocent person, a righteous person. So you cannot turn a blind eye to millions of righteous people dying every year when they do not have to die every year. So therefore, the highest form of wisdom is surgical strikes on the elite, either directing an army against them, a small group of people against them, or striking on them yourself. That is the highest form of awareness. Now, one last thing I'd like to go through, if I have time. 6S plus 3E plus 0.5B plus 0.50 equals R. Those of you who have been watching my videos since 2011, 2012, you've heard my equation where R is resulting behavior, E is environmental factors, S is stage of mind or state of mind, B is biology, O is other factors. Okay. Now, your resulting behavior doesn't necessarily mean, you know, having behaving very well. You know, good behavior does not equate to the deepest forms of wisdom. A lot of Freemasons don't understand that. A lot of conformists simply cannot understand that. You know, they're stuck on stupid. They're not aware. They are, you know, their mind is controlled. They're saying, this is how one is supposed to be. They don't think outside the box that they live in. You know, they say, this is how we're supposed to be. And this is how we, you know, behave and relate to each other in society. Something that Jesus did not do. Something that Martin Luther King did not do. Something that every great revolutionary that ever was simply did not do. They thought outside the box. Their behavior was, quote unquote, abnormal. It was out of the ordinary. What is a synonym? What is the best description of the most aware man on the planet? A mental patient. What is the best description for a true revolutionary in today's society? A mental patient. What is the best description for the only hope for humanity? A mental patient. And somewhere right now is that 1 in 30 million, and he is planning his attack. Thank you.